Hi INFJs and Autistic INFJs. I'm really curious how many of you find yourself hating having to make a decision because you know you're going to overthink, and that's like so exhausting, thinking about the what ifs and if I should go and do it this way or that way, and then questioning if you made the right decision. I know for me, I would get caught, I hated decisions. I would get caught overthinking so long, I would overthink about it that sometimes I would miss out on actually having to make the decision. And lots of times it was great opportunities for myself that I'd totally miss out on. I'd get so mad at myself. Or I'm curious how many of you avoid going out and having fun or doing the things that you really want to do because you're really worried about fitting in, about how people just don't ever seem to get you. So instead of dealing with that, we just stay home. That was me as well. Or maybe you're constantly feeling like you're being taken advantage of by the people around you or the people in your workplace or whatever it may be. That was me also. If you can relate to any of those, then whatever, then it is possible that you're struggling with a low self-acceptance. And this is what I wanted to talk about today. Is INFJs who struggle with low self-acceptance. My son is playing, so you might hear him. Many of us struggle with this, and it impacts our life drastically in ways that I didn't even know it would impact. And actually, I refused to accept myself for years, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit as well today. So welcome to my channel. I'm glad you found it. I'm Trina Bretnell. I like showing up and helping INFJs and INFJs who are autistic just feel seen, heard, and understood. It really feels good to know that you're not the only one in the world, that there's not something drastically wrong with you. I know it was a relief when I found out. So welcome to my channel. Again, I hope you find it helpful. And if you're returning, I'm very glad that you came back. If you have something that you would like me to talk about, a topic or something, related to the INFJs or autistic INFJs, neurodivergence, drop it in the comments, or I will put my email address in the description of this video, and feel free to email me. I love hearing from you guys, so any topic, whatever you want, send it my way, and never know, maybe I'll chat about it. Today though, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Talking about self-acceptance, I see this, in myself was huge, but also with a lot of my clients that I work with. When I coach them, lots of the struggles I find that they have, it all comes back to self-acceptance, self-love, the self-worth, that sort of thing. And those all kind of run hand in hand. So I thought I would talk about this today because I also see it lots when I'm mingling in INFJ groups and neurodivergent groups. This is a big one that comes up when people are reaching out and asking for help. And I see that we can link this back to self-acceptance. For me, I went most of my life, probably until midlife, almost close to my 40s. I might have actually been 40 before I really accepted who I was. Even once I found out that I was an INFJ, I still had a hard time accepting who I was. When I finally took the time to unpack it, I wouldn't accept who I was because I was really scared that if I accepted who I was, it was admitting that there was something wrong with me. I was still in that mindset. So I was really scared to accept who I was. I really hated who I was. Like, I can't even begin to explain how much I hated myself. I couldn't even look in the mirror. That's how much I hated who I was. So I definitely was not going to accept who I was. And I really, really wanted to change. Once I kind of got out of that mindset that, you know what, I don't have to change. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not a victim at all. This is just who I am. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. We give it meaning. Being an INFJ or an autistic INFJ, I am also autistic, we give that meaning and it will create lots of turmoil for us. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. If you need to give it meaning, all it means is that we process information differently. Basically, in a nutshell, that's all it means. As we process information around us very different than everybody else. That's why we're considered neurodivergent. And yes, INFJs are considered neurodivergent. In many articles I read, we are considered neurodivergent because studies are showing on INFJs that we do process information very differently than any other personality type. Okay? Now, going back to the self-acceptance, many of us struggle with this for a number of reasons. Mine was fear. I didn't want to admit that there was something wrong with me, so I wouldn't accept it. I didn't want everything that people told me growing up and even in my adult life, I didn't want that to be true, so I wouldn't accept who I was, okay? But there are other reasons. There's a whole list of reasons why we struggle with it. Some of us will struggle with it because we have difficulty expressing our needs and our wants. So we'll find ourselves prioritizing everybody else's over our own. And this actually fosters a sense of low self-worth. We start to really believe that we aren't worth it because everybody else is more important. Internal conflict. This is a huge one. INFJs, we have internal conflict going on all the time between our first function, our introverted intuition, and our third function, introverted thinking. There's a conflict. I'm not going to go into explaining it because that would be a really long video, but it's quite interesting. And actually, I should do a video on that because it's quite interesting. So you've probably seen the memes that INFJs are like a walking, walking inner turmoil or a walking controversy. Inner controversy, I can't remember what the memes are. Anyway, that's what it's pointing at, is that conflict between our introverted intuition and our introverted thinking. Many of us struggle with low self-worth and low self-acceptance because we always felt different. We were different. We knew we were different right from a young age. We were different in the way we were thinking and the way we would see things, and everything about us seemed very different. So we tended to isolate ourselves because we felt inadequate. Our high sensitivity will make it very hard for us to accept ourselves, right? It leads to our high sensitivity until we really understand how it is and how it's working in our body and that there is nothing wrong. It's the way we're processing information, that there are things in our body that are taking in way more information than other people. Again, I'm not going to go into that. It's super interesting, but to explain it would take a long time. But our high sensitivity leads us to having a hard time with negative feedback and criticism, which actually will impact self-doubt. It fosters a sense of self-doubt, and our self-worth goes down the drain. But when we gain a level of self-acceptance and start growing that, amazing things happen for us when we do that. Now you're probably thinking, what are the symptoms of low self-acceptance? Before I get ahead of myself, this would have been a question that came up in my mind, and it was. I actually searched it years ago because I was like, okay, I relate to a lot of this. Now, what are the symptoms? Now, there's a whole list of symptoms of low self-acceptance, so I'm going to ramble them off quick. Low self-esteem is one. People-pleasing, if we find we're always people-pleasing. We have high self-criticism, so we usually have negative self-talk. We're very nasty to ourselves. We overthink a lot about everything. I always used to say if overthinking was an Olympic sport, I would take gold. We set unrealistic standards and goals for ourselves. We fear rejection drastically, which stops us from doing anything, like applying for promotions, maybe even applying for a specific job we want to do, because we fear that rejection. We have difficulty setting boundaries. And when I say difficulty setting boundaries, generally we don't have any boundaries going up at all. There are none. We're scared to say no, we're scared of hurting other people's feelings, and boundaries are just not happening in our life. I had none. Zero. Often we feel sad, frustrated, and our anxiety spikes numerous times throughout the day for no reason. We have no idea why, it will just spike. We tend to be withdrawn and lonely because we fear we're not going to fit in. And decisions, like I said earlier, are very hard for us. We hate them, and generally will avoid having to make them. whether we let somebody else make them or we just avoid circumstances that's going to put us in a position where we're going to have to make that decision. And when we do make decisions, we have a hard time trusting that we made the right one. We're constantly questioning ourselves. It could be like 2 years down the road after we've made the decision, and we still could be questioning whether or not we made that right decision. But now when INFJs and autistic INFJs, when we gain a level of self-acceptance, when we finally allow ourselves to accept who we are and lean into our unique qualities and perspectives and just start learning about our personality type and about what's going on with us, amazing things start to happen. The first thing, I have 6 things I'm going to share. Actually, I have 7. I have 7 things that I'm going to share with you. The amazing things that happen. There's way more than 7, but I just picked out 7 of my favorite ones that I've seen happen in my life. So the first thing that happens when an INFJ or an autistic INFJ grows a level of self-acceptance is we become more confident in our unique traits and in our abilities. We allow ourselves to lean into them. We don't care what other people say. We don't care if we're going to get judged by it. We lean into it and it starts taking us down a complete different path. And it's really cool what happens. The second thing that happens when an INFJ grows self-acceptance and self-love is we have greater self-compassion. So we find ourselves kinder to ourselves. We stop that negative self-talk. We're more forgiving. And this is really cool because we worry less about fitting in and about being judged by other people, which then in turn allows us to start doing the things we want to do, those visions, those ideas that we have in our mind that keep eating away at us year after year. We allow ourselves to go and do it. And it's really cool when that happens, when we start doing the things we really, really want to do. Life becomes more fulfilling. The third thing that happens when an INFJ grows self-acceptance is we have improved relationships, which is really huge. INFJs struggle with relationships. This allows us to establish healthy boundaries, which then in turn leads to deeper, fulfilling relationships. That's really cool. The fourth thing that happens when an INFJ has self-acceptance is reduce overwhelm. Right? I don't know if you guys feel overwhelmed all the time. I used to feel it all the time. Accepting ourselves helps us manage our tendency to overthink and feel overwhelmed all the time, which in turn actually starts allowing us to take action. Like I said before, we'll start taking action on those things that we wanted to do because we're able to. That overwhelm isn't there holding us back. The fifth thing that happens when we start to accept ourselves is we have a stronger purpose. We have a stronger purpose. Self-acceptance helps us align with our true purpose and passions in life. This is huge. How many INFJs, how many of you, I'm curious, always wonder what your purpose is or have that thought, there's got to be more. This can't be my purpose. There's got to be more for me, right? Self-acceptance will help lead you to your purpose so that you can see it and you can live it out and your life becomes more fulfilling. The sixth thing that happens when an INFJ gains a level of self-acceptance is inner peace and contentment. This is also huge, right? Wouldn't you love inner peace and contentment? We no longer feel that constant need to search for external validation. We're happy with who we are. We're content with who we are. We don't worry about what everybody else thinks or if they're accepting us or if we're fitting in anymore. We don't worry about that. It's out there, but we don't notice it anymore. It's amazing when that happens. And the seventh thing, now this isn't the absolute last thing. You could do a search and find out more what will happen for you when you gain a level of self-acceptance. But for today, my seventh thing that happens for an INFJ when we gain a level of self-acceptance is it leads to better emotional regulation. So we're able to understand our emotions, which is huge because when we experience our emotions, it's different than everybody else, right? We're high sensitive, especially if you're on the spectrum. If you're autistic, our emotions are very, very deep. So words that most people use to describe emotions, they don't really fit ours. I mean, they kind of do, but not really because we're feeling them so deeply. So this will lead to confusion about our emotions. When we gain that level of self-acceptance, we're able to understand our emotions. And once we understand them better, we begin to manage them, which is also huge for an INFJ, when we gain a level of self-acceptance. I hope this was interesting for you. I hope it was helpful. And I hope that it will encourage you to accept who you are, because I know many INFJs do not accept who they are. And that really makes me sad. And I know how it feels. I was there for many years, but now I also know how it feels when we accept who we are and we lean into it. If it was helpful, I invite you to like my video. The more times it's liked, the more INFJs get to see it because it's pushed out more. And I also invite you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet, because you never know what I'm going to talk about. Again, if you have a topic that you would like me to talk about, put it in the comments or send me an email. Thanks for joining, and I will see you guys very soon again with another fun video. Until then, bye for now.